So I'm going to try to do briefly is talk a little bit about the history of Disston, which next year would be 175 years since the first saw manufacturer, Henry Disston's first saw company was opened. Tell you a little bit what we're trying to do today. So I laugh about the picture up on the left because I have 3 children, and when I describe to them what I bought, I'm a banker by background, so this whole thing is sort of new to me, that if you walk into the shop, look for a guy named Homer with a handlebar mustache and a leather apron, and there he is. And on the right is Larry DePaul, who's our head of maintenance now and one of our very key guys. But in many ways, they're still doing some of the similar things. What we make are large steel products, flat steel products, kind of things that if it falls on your foot, it's going to hurt. So Henry Disston came to the United States as an apprentice to his father. His father died 3 weeks after he got here to Philadelphia. Worked hard, apprenticed himself to somebody else. In 1840, opened his first saw shop. An incredible amount of innovation that he had. For example, he was the first person to bring a crucible steel mill to the United States, and then later on used Bessemer steel. Technology-driven, really tried hard to do the right things by his workers, which I'll talk about in a minute, but most importantly, quality of his product and to try to improve things. Over time, Disston became the largest single handsaw company in the United States, actually in the world, and one of the largest employers. In 1872, the Disston family decided to move from Philadelphia out to Tacony, which is in northeast Philadelphia, as many of you I'm sure you know, which was at the time described as a vacation spot. So I think, to me, that's sort of an amazing thing that things really do change, because who knows where we'll be in 50 years, but maybe that's where we'll all be having the next conference, and maybe that's where we'll be sunning ourselves. I doubt it, but it could happen. So this is what the plant looked like in 1917, sort of at its height. We still occupy and produce products that they do, so I argue that we still have a direct line back to them. We have about 127,000 square feet. Again, in describing it to my rotten children, I describe it as saying, if we were to have a basketball tournament, we could have 25 consecutive games going on at the same time. The place is enormous. And when I first walked in, I liked that about it. When the electrical bill comes in and the heating bill comes in at the end of the month, it seems pretty big. But there he is. There's the father of Tacony. I like the little dippity-doo on the hair. And I think what I'm going to talk about him in a little bit, but I think it's amazing that 175 years later, we're still talking about a man who did many of the things. One of the things I want to talk about is that when he set up Tacony, I'm not suggesting that he did it completely altruistically, but when the homes that they built for the workers were eventually put into the estate, which was held by his wife, Mary, when they were eventually sold, every single one was bought by a worker. So that means that they ultimately were well maintained, they were given at a reasonable price, he did the right things by other people. These are some of what the products look like. Civil War, tremendous growth, continued through the next 50 years or so. At the time, much different than it is today, very hierarchical ownership. The family was sort of at top. A lot of the direction went down below. In the beginning, there were no unions. They developed into unions. Generally speaking, the history says they had a good relationship with those folks. But again, very much geared towards innovation, trying to find things to do. I think it's very important to talk about Disston a little bit in World War II. One of the things that we still make are large plates, which are used in die cutting. Many of the tanks and the ships, the armor plating that was used during the war was, in fact, made at the plant, and as well as things like machetes and trench knives. And in fact, if you go on eBay, a lot of these things are still there. And once in a while, funny enough, we get a call asking us if we still have some of these things. After World War II, there was a decline in the business, but I want to point out that other than General Electric, there is no other company in the Dow Jones 30 that's still there. It's very difficult to be able to operate and grow a company over such a long period of time. In 1960s, the family sold out to a company from Pittsburgh called H.K. Porter, eventually sold out to a Scandinavian company which makes very large saws. But about 30 years ago, the person I bought the company from did, in fact, very successful, well-known Philadelphia family. So it did come back to Philadelphia. And I think that's a nice way to kind of conclude that story. So what do we do today? These are some of the things we make. If anybody has seen a steel mill and you see the sparks flying off the steel, chances are it's one of these saws that's cutting it. This is our largest product. Those are 8 feet high. We sharpen them, and they're used in steel mills to cut real steel. So like I said, if it falls on your foot, it's not a good day. We make a lot of other things. Generally, what we do is we make flat steel objects that are used for cutting, or they're used in clutch discs or compressors, things that very much touch all of our lives. A little bit about me. And the reason I mention this is that I'm only one generation away from the shop floor. My dad was a printer, and my mom was a homemaker. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. It's exciting for me to be there and to be the owner of the business, but I really, really understand how important it is to talk to people and work with people. As I mentioned, I was a banker, had a fun, successful career. Why exactly I bought this company, sometimes I wonder, but it's been exciting. People have been very helpful to me. People have been generous with their time and their knowledge, and it's been good. When I first walked into that building, the little bit of the history major in the back of me, it's neat. It really is interesting. Someone just mentioned a few years ago that there were some tours given during an art festival and that Disston was actually by far the most popular item. It really is a cool, neat old place and expensive to heat. We have 24 employees. Believe it or not, Mark Ward, that's Jerry Davenport, Mark is a smith. So he actually moves the steel with a hammer. The way you get things as flat as they possibly can is still by hand. So he might have 20 different hammers. He hits that. Sometimes he hits it a lot. Sometimes he hits it a little. But at the end of the day, if you want a saw blade or the plates to run true and to be flat, we need Mark to do it. Now, the problem is Mark is our only smith. So if Mark decides to fall in love and move to California, we have a problem. But there are smiths in Bulgaria, as I talk to him, when he threatens to do that. What am I trying to do? What are we trying to do? Disston got lazy, to be perfectly frank. And so what we're trying to do is relook at all those different processes. I don't know how to do these things, but I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to push people. I'm willing to try to challenge everybody. And mostly I'm willing to communicate and listen to what other people tell me, and then make a decision. That's really what my job is to make decisions. Everybody else's job is to make the stuff and try to figure those things out, but do it in a way that's open and generous. And I'll talk a little bit about why that, to me, has been terrific. So I'll just cover the bottom point first. So there's a couple of organizations, the Manufacturing Association of Philadelphia and Philadelphia Works. MAP is a lobbying organization for manufacturing in Philadelphia. I'm not sure if people would recognize this, but manufacturing is actually the 5th largest employer in Philadelphia. And out by Tacony, that vacation land that we all know and love, it's incredible how much manufacturing there is out there. Philadelphia Works is a quasi-government organization that brings the government money and businesses together to figure out how to do training, whether it be welding, whether it be CAD training, all sorts of different stuff. So what are we trying to do? A couple of things. ISO 9000 is an international standard for manufacturers. We believe if we put it in place, it'll improve our processes, but more importantly, it will help us sell overseas, sell to bigger companies, try to institute some change. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just makes sure that if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And we think that's valuable. We're thinking about buying, or we will buy, a laser cutter. And I have a nice story about this. It will eliminate some of the processes we use today. The new machinery has been a very good thing in that people in the plant are excited that we're investing money in. People want to see that. We're able to bring some things that we've done outside in-house, though outsourcing is perfectly fine. I'm okay with Iowa corn farmers. I don't need to buy my corn in Philadelphia. I mean, everybody does it, so we don't need to bring everything in-house, but we're trying to do that a little bit here. So the nice story was the laser is very expensive. I don't know how to operate it. Nobody in the building really knows how to operate it. So when it came to me about some folks had showed interest, but I responded to the shop steward, Larry, the gentleman whose picture, I said, I want somebody to show some interest. I want somebody to go out and do some work on their own. So the 3rd most senior guy in the entire shop, terrific machinist, nice man, 40 years in the place, goes out and just does that. He goes on the internet, gets some manuals, asks to have a meeting, sits down and asks for the job. And that just made me feel great. It made me feel like he was doing the right thing, we were doing the right thing. And then, so there's 2 jobs with a laser. There's a programmer who sits in the office, programs it, and then shoots an email or a USB key. And then there's the operator. So I was thinking of the gentleman for the operator job. He has to do both. And we'll see how it all plays out. There's going to be a lot of training, a lot of work, but I'm convinced that he's the right guy. And that was a good thing, and I think it was a result of us being open and honest, him being able to come to me. And so it was, as I said, it was a good meeting and a good day. So my view of it is that the U.S., Philadelphia, I mean, are Philadelphia workers really better than North Carolina or California or Chicago or Shanghai? I don't think so. I think people work hard everywhere. The U.S. has very few, I think, real advantages. One is that it's a giant place with one legal system, financing markets which are incredibly innovative. But other than that, what you really have to do is work hard every day. It's difficult out there. It's difficult for us to sell our saws. It's difficult for us to sell other things. But we can do it, and we can do it well. But I think knowledge is the key. I don't have any of these skills, how to make this stuff. Nobody wants me hammering a saw and running it true at, I don't know, 50,000 RPMs a minute. But there are people that can do that. And so what I've found has been what worked well my whole life, my career, and now is to follow people's natural curiosity. Again, back to the example of the laser. Buy lunch once in a while. Everybody sit down. But really just try to get everybody involved with the process to make them make sure they understand that their opinion is really more valuable than mine, though ultimately it's my decision. And that's been a way that we've been able to work together, and I think that's going to help us continue to go forward. So back to the beginning. So when Henry Disston was thinking about moving out to vacation land, Disney World out there, I guess at the time it was superstitious to begin building on a Friday. So on a Friday, he started his building, and this is what he said: "Tomorrow's Friday, I'm not a bit superstitious, but those that don't believe in us, well, they'll make fun of us if we do." Well, today's a Friday. I was born on a Friday, and hopefully I've done a good job so you won't get annoyed with me, but I'm a Mets fan, and the Phillies open up at Shea on a Friday. And so let's hope that we all have a good Friday going from here. And I will point out that I think it's amazing that we're still talking about the Disston family, their good works, the things they've done. I looked it up. Martin Van Buren was president in 1840. I doubt anybody without Google like me could have figured that out. But we do think about him, and I think it would be appropriate to have a good thought, a prayer for that family and the things they've done. And I'm excited to be part of that legacy in a very sort of distant way. So this is our saw room, by the way. This is where we make it. You can see kind of the different machines and stuff like that. So thank you very much. Have a good day.